Would you mind just discussing a little bit your work on the Commonwealth side of things, that as a concept? Do you mind introducing that?
Sure. Thank you for asking. Um, so after more than several years promoting basic income, which from a very, basic, like we people need money, everyone understands that, but without really honing in on how to pay for it. A lot of people don't want to talk about that because it really depends on the politics of the time. Like whoever's in power will pay for it based on their own political ends. You can imagine how NDP would want to pay for it versus liberals versus conservatives. And yes, conservatives would also be for it, those who have their heads screwed on right, because it is actually an idea that was supported by many famous conservatives in the past, including Milton Friedman. So studying that, I learned a lot about history and economics. And I learned about what actually drives poverty in the first place, what creates most of the problems in our economy with our productivity and inequality. And I learned about this concept of that there is something called commonwealth, community-created wealth, public wealth. You can find your own name for it, but there is a category of profit that is not created by business or the entrepreneur. It's created by society. And that category of profit has been known since the beginnings of capitalism as the ideal way to fund public services, the ideal way to provide income security for people. And you could say that in our current understanding of social and economic justice, we got it wrong. It's not left versus right. It's not rich versus poor. It's actually that there is a category, there's publicly created wealth that should be publicly shared instead of privatized. And we're also probably overly socializing privately created wealth, which is inhibiting our productivity and inhibiting job creation. So we could actually find a system where we're taxing the value of unearned value from nature. We're taxing growth in land values, which is really screwing up our housing market, that we're privatizing and encouraging speculation on growing land values under our real estate market. It's really at a root cause issue of why we don't have affordable housing. And we've studied that a lot on Commonwealth Canada. We could reduce income taxes and corporate taxes and other taxes if we taxed land value, if we taxed unearned income in the oil and gas industry, if we tax unearned income in the mineral extraction industry. The basic insight is when you're talking about nature, there is a category of profit that was not created by the extractor. It was created by the community itself, by the market, by our needs as a society. If you look at land value, if you look at anyone's house or condo, the value of that land was not created by the owner. It was created by public investments in the area. It was created by the economic growth at large. It was created by this health in that community. So we could have a system where we actually have very little, none or very low taxes on incomes, on productivity that inhibit our economic prosperity, and we could tax unearned income. And if we did that, we wouldn't have poverty. We would have more density in the cities where we need more housing. We wouldn't have so much urban sprawl and so much environmental degradation. And that's a system that I think we're going to have to look at the next 10 to 20 years because we're facing a productivity crisis. We're facing a housing crisis, an equality crisis, a poverty crisis, and how we treat the value of land and natural resources cuts deeply into all those crises. So I think being able to shift in parts to reduce some taxes and shift to a land tax that can also pay a basic income would correct a gigantic injustice that's hundreds of years old, where people are excluded from holding and owning land. No one can afford to buy a house. Instead are trapped in working poverty forever. But if we found a way for land value and natural resource value to literally fund a basic income and to reduce other taxes on productive pursuits, we would have this amazing world where like the bigger economy grows, the more everyone benefits directly in their pockets, the more entrepreneurs are unleashed. It would be a virtuous economy. It would be an economy that is more true to the actual parts of capitalism that drive innovation and improve standards of living than what we have right now. Because what we have right now is like a market system bolted on top of old feudalist economics, where basically the housing landowners benefit, people who own housing benefit at the expense of future generations. So Commonwealth Canada, we wanted to have that discussion and do that separate from basic income, so we don't confuse the basic income movement with these bigger ideas. Because in some ways, fighting for a land value tax, even if it reduces other taxes, is harder than fighting for basic income, because the property ownership class won't like it unless we find ways to show that it'll actually help them. And that's what we're doing at Commonwealth Canada. We're actually researching what a land value tax would actually do, who would benefit, who would lose, what we can do to ensure that most people experience tax relief in such a package. And that's what we're doing. And we're in the middle of that research right now. We have some draft stuff up, but in the next few months over the summer, I think we'll have a more serious policy that I hope to put onto the national agenda, because nobody is suggesting anything that will meaningfully reduce housing prices. And we need to reduce prices, not just hold them flat or slow their growth. And I think a land value tax could do that.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for introducing that concept. I think that that's still new in people's minds, and maybe some haven't heard about it at all.